I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
Hello, boxing fans. Welcome to Boxing to the World. So, we've just witnessed what may have proved to be the final chapter in Joyce's career in Moscow. In Moscow, the 40-year-old British heavyweight suffered an 11-round defeat to the undisputed Suslenkov. And what made this loss particularly painful was not simply the fact that he was beaten, it was simply because the manner in which the fight ended. Joyce had to quit. He actually quit on his feet. Just appeared to signal that he had had enough before the referee could stop or step in to wave the contest off. So basically, this was very deeply emotional moment for everyone, especially those of us who are boxing fans. And so I'm going to break this down for you exactly what happened, why it happened, and what comes up next. So coming into this contest, we know that Joyce was hoping to restart his career after a very long layoff. He had changed trainers, and he worked now with Sugar Hill Stewart and spoke confidently about making one of his last runs towards the world title. Instead, he ran into a younger, fresher, and much quicker opponent. We already know that Joyce's speed and agility is not his strength. So that was revealed in this fight. So from the opening bell, Artem Suslenkov established the pattern of this fight. And so his footwork was very sharp, his hand speed was considerably faster, and he consistently beat Joyce to the punch. So Joe, we know he still possesses the qualities we've always considered him for. His toughness, his engine, and his willingness to walk through punches but these physical advantages that once allowed him to overwhelm opponents simply weren't there anymore. Lenkov landed the cleaner punches throughout the contest. His right hand found the target repeatedly. His combinations were on point. Whenever Joyce attempted to establish his jab, Suslenkov was already inside firing combinations. We saw those combinations hit Joyce very flash on. So over the years, we've known Joyce as the Juggernaut, and he wasn't difficult to hit. We know that he wasn't particularly the fastest, and he wasn't very elusive too. Those were his weaknesses. But then he used those weaknesses. Those weaknesses did not matter. He could absorb those punishments and would have stopped almost every opponent that he met. His chin was legendary. We know that he simply kept coming. So that particular worked for him against Daniel Dubois and even against Joseph Parker. We knew those things worked in his favor. But against he also worked against countless opponents that we know. Those of you who follow Joyce a lot, you realize that this was his strength that he used to walk through and break down his opponent. So he broke fighters mentally because they simply couldn't keep him off them. That happened in particularly during Daniel Dubois' fight with Joyce. But boxing is very brutal. So the qualities that make you successful often disappear over time, So once he met Zelejan, I can say that Zelejan was the one who cracked him back in 2023. And so all other fighters or all other fights that he had thereafter was a nightmare for him. And I think that the second fight or the rematch that he had with Zelejan, it shouldn't have been an immediate rematch. And that actually broke him. So since then, we've seen a different Joyce. He has still been brave. We know that he has still been brave. He's has still been willing, but he can no longer rely on being indestructible, And because defense was never his greatest asset, losing that durability has exposed every weaknesses in his game. So now he's not able to absorb the punches. So against Suslenkov, the pattern continued, trying to walk through his opponent. But the guy was very agile. So he absorbed clean punches for rounds after rounds, and those accumulations became too much. And eventually, his body gave up. And so his mind, even though didn't admit to it, but enough was enough, and he has to just quit. So now I want to address the why I think that he quit. So now let's address that. Did he really quit or take? Yeah, technically, I think he quit. He indicated that he didn't wish to continue. Yes, he waved his gloves and the referee intervened after Salenskov continued his attack. But before anyone criticizes him too harshly, we need to remember something. We need to remember that Joe Joyce has built an entire career on taking punches and not normal heavyweights should ever have been taken. He's never been accused of lacking courage, that we know very well. He's never looked for any easy way out. And if anything, people have criticized him throughout his career for taking too many punches. Yeah. And genuinely, we fear for his life because boxing is a very tough sport. It's very brutal. So when someone like Joe Joyce really says, I've had enough, perhaps we should listen and we should know that really he has enough because there is somebody who basically walk into punches and try to use that as a bargaining chip against his opponent. This wasn't really fear. This wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't a lack of heart. This looks like a fighter whose body simply could not continue. Yeah, and sometimes quitting isn't just weakness, it's just a sign of wisdom that saves you to fight another time. So I would say, like, credit to Artem Suslenkov. It's very important that we don't make this analysis entirely on Joe Joyce. But Salenskov, Salenskov deserved enormous credit. He fought within discipline and he never became reckless. He never became reckless. We know that. He respected Joe Joyce's power while taking advantage of his slower reactions. You know, Joe Joyce was too slow, and you could see his punches being telegraphed. So he made or he took advantage of that. His timing was very excellent, and his combinations were accurate. You could see clear punches that landed on Joe Joyce. And so his movements frustrated Joe Joyce all night. He was using his lateral, so Joe Joyce couldn't walk straight to him and do what he does best. So most importantly, he never allowed Joe Joyce to build momentum. And every time Joe Joyce looked as though he might establish pressure, Salenskov answered immediately by bringing his combination punches. So this was easily the biggest victory for Salenskov's career and should move him significantly into higher heavyweight conversation. But the sad reality really for me is that watching Joe Joyce on that day is very difficult if you have actually followed him or followed his journey like I do. Remember, this is a man who defeated Daniel Dubois, a man who stopped Joseph Parker. You know, he was also an Olympic silver medalist. And for a period, many people believe that, and even among myself, after he defeated Daniel Dubois, I believe that he was one of the most dangerous heavyweights on the planet. And I even tipped him for winning the title. But heavyweight boxing moves very quickly and it catches up with everyone. And so Joe Joyce at 40 is old for the sport. And this sport is a young man's game. It's a young man's game. So his style just dependent on durability and no really good skills. Has a lot of vulnerabilities. And once the durability fades, and that fades with age, the decline becomes very dramatic. And that was what we saw last Saturday with Salenskov. You don't gradually lose everything, but sometimes attributes disappear and eventually the entire style drops or stops working. And so that is what happened to Joe Joyce. Now the conversation all around is, should Joe Joyce retire? Should he really retire? This is obviously Joe Joyce's decision to take. Only he knows how he feels physically and even mentally, and he is the only one who knows whether he still has the desire to fight. Saw in the post interview that he said he was fighting for the money. If that is very motivating enough for him to want to put on the gloves and go to the ring and fight again, then so be it. But if you are looking purely at the evidence that we saw or I saw during the fight with Artem, then it's becoming increasingly very difficult to argue that another comeback makes sense. It really doesn't make sense. He's now lost 5 of his last 6 games, and that is poor performance if you look at the data. With this latest defeat coming after another performance which he absorbed prolonged punishment, I fear for his health. Really, I really fear for his health. So at this point, protecting long-term health becomes more important than chasing any one or even one final opportunity. So no one can question his bravery. We know Joyce is very brave, and no one can question his professionalism. He's very professional, we know that. So, and no one certainly can question his achievement. This is a guy who has been at the Olympics and has won, I think 2016, yeah, 2016 Olympics, and has won silver medal. So we can't really question his achievement. And if this is the end of him, yeah, I think he should leave the sport with a tremendous respect and some money in his account. So this wasn't simply another heavyweight upset. It's not really an upset. This felt like the end of an era, and that era is Joyce's era. He's at the sunset or at the twilight of his boxing career.
I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.